Welcome back and thank you for listening to another episode of Woman Wiser. I am your host, Sikin, and today I'm so excited to be in conversation with an amazing coach and energy worker, Mandy. She is someone that I work with personally, is an incredible transformative coach, and just has the most powerful, nurturing ability to hold space for herself and those around us. And we're talking about how we remain grounded when the ground shifts. So let's get into it. Love, love, love. Well, we're here. We've been talking about we have to do a podcast with this idea of restoring and returning when we're in times of change. And the thing that has called to me is what you said to me, which was pain is a call for more love. And I feel like that line has been my forever chills, forever stitched into me mantra, and this reminder that I give to myself always when I'm trying to move too quickly or I'm trying to push through something when I should just be just letting more in. And incidentally, it was like right around the time I turned 40, and that felt like such a big turning point. I could feel this void of where my past had been. And I didn't know if I was trying to recreate the past or feel into the future. And so that statement it really sat with me. It felt like so appropriate coming into this conversation. And I was curious about how that shows up for you in your life.
I just got chill bumps when you said all of that. I almost feel like tears coming up in the back of my throat when I think that like those sorts of things stick with people and shape how they face life and challenges. I think that statement in particular, that pain is a call for more love, I can't claim ownership over the idea. I don't know where it originated, but the whole idea is that we live in such a pain avoidant society. And not just pain avoidant, but I think it's feelings avoidant. I think because we're not taught about emotions at all. And I also have theories, especially like with the millennial generation, right? A lot of our generation of parents are baby boomers who were the children of wartime, right? All of these like really intense, traumatizing conflicts that so many of our grandparents were part of shaped the way that they raised their kids. Our parents, they weren't in therapy. They weren't dealing with their trauma. They didn't need emotion in the space. And so our parents grew up in a very much be seen, not heard. If you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. If you need to cry, go do it in private. Like keep everything buried down. And then I think that just sort of got passed down to us as millennials. And so I think in general, all of that to say, that has shaped us being in this society that's emotion avoidant, pain avoidant. And I just think there's so much richness in not being afraid to feel because all of our emotions are information. And if we're able to lean in and glean the information from the emotions, we can take such bigger risks in life. There's just so much that we can access if we're not avoiding pain.
That it's learned.
If we can just relate to pain as just a signal to us to apply more love somewhere. Like that's such a beautiful, soft way to approach it.
Yeah.
It's not get rid of the discomfort, but how can I apply more grace, more compassion, more love to the situation?
Instead of just trying to pour water on the fire, I didn't name any of that as pain. There's hurt here. There's a wound here. And it made so much sense. It was just me in my head. The language was I'm hitting a wall. I'm slowing down, just intrusive or limiting beliefs or thoughts about ourselves. And I wasn't even allowing myself to think that it could be something that I have been avoiding.
I think that's part of the sneaky nature of our subconscious and how it protects us from feeling pain is like, if I don't even recognize it as that, then I don't have to deal with it, right? It's not that big of a deal. When I acknowledge it, then I have to do something.
That's when the work all comes into play, but it does have to get messy sometimes.
I mean, I've definitely been in situations where I've gone into a container with a coach or someone who I've hired to guide me, to mentor me.
Mhm.
and thought to myself, I hope she doesn't ask about situation because I
Mm.
really don't want to have to do something about it. Because I just
Interesting.
knew that it was wrong. I knew it was something that like was out of alignment for me, but I
Yeah.
wasn't prepared to face the discomfort and the pain of
Yeah.
changing that situation. People's walls are the biggest impediment to
Mhm.
change, for sure.
We can only go as far as we let ourselves.
Usually that's because we're disconnected from our body, from our emotions, from our experience,
Mhm.
because we've been subconsciously pain avoidant. And
Yeah.
so we just disconnect, right? We disembody, we avoid all of those things. And then you find
Mhm.
yourself in that situation where you're like, okay, I've reached a point of no return. Something has to
Yeah.
give, but I'm having a hard time even articulating what's wrong.
I think going back to like this origin space, when you're not really given the space or the permission to say, I'm not okay, or I need this, the first time you get in that situation where someone even asks you, what do you need? I remember being like, I have no idea. I don't know how to answer that question. No one's ever asked me that before.
Yeah. It was surprising to me to find that I would say over 50% of the people that I work with when we first start working together and I ask them what their vision is, what they want, they don't know.
Mm, yeah.
I think it's really common, but I don't think we realize that it's common because there's so much emphasis out there on your goals and your 5-year plan and where do you want to be and checking things off the list. And I think everyone just assumes that everyone else knows where they're going and what they're
Yeah.
doing.
It's
And
a
I
great,
think also just sort of to bring it back to the theme of this podcast as like women in this sort of midlife space,
yes.
I think there's a checklist in our head of what we think we're supposed to want and what other people have. And I think when we start to reach this space, we start to like really take ownership of the fact that maybe we don't want those things and we start to give ourselves permission to not want the same thing. I don't know that I could have said that in my 20s or even in like my early 30s that I felt like it was okay for me to admit that I didn't want kids, for example.
Yeah. Actually, I was the opposite in the sense that I knew and would admit it, but I think I didn't really know why. And so I couldn't explain it.
That's okay too.
Yeah.
That's the other thing is like whenever you have an idea that kind of goes against the grain, you feel like you have to defend yourself and like have some
Yes.
great, deep, profound explanation, but it's okay to just not want kids.
Yeah. It really is. And I think there was like a micro late 30s and 40s where I was like, maybe I do. Maybe I should want them. Maybe I've been ignoring this feeling. And I like kind of went with it for a little while. I'm like, okay, maybe I'll just like allow myself to feel that if that's how I feel right now. I think I even felt the need, like I had to have an explanation for changing my mind.
Yeah.
But I think women are tired of having to follow a checklist. And now we're getting into this point in midlife. And I was having this conversation with a friend earlier that there's like a new checklist to follow. There's more that we have to do to adapt in our bodies and in our minds and our soul energy. Like, where am I going with these bigger sort of existential questions that I think are coming up for a lot of um and it can be disorienting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just feeling like it's almost like there's this initiation that happens that you don't realize is happening,
Mm,
where all of the things that you thought you knew you don't know anymore.
yes.
And I think that relates to like your physical body, right? Like I thought I knew what I needed to be healthy. I thought I knew what I needed when I needed to drop a few pounds, like all of these things. And that's completely changing. And
Yes,
that's
yeah.
very untethering, I think. And, you know, in other areas too, like, you know, everything that I thought I knew about my career, everything I thought I knew about, you know, what I am here to offer the world, like all of these things are
Yeah.
starting to shift again. And it's like, it's scary. And I think it's just a different level of surrender, right? It just teaches you the art of letting go in a deeper way.
Yeah. Well, you're letting your story in instead of the checklist that society has traditionally in air quotes, written for us. And I think that's also a big reason why we're asking ourselves these questions, because those of us who are sitting at 40 and making big changes, culturally, we're told that we should have figured it out by then. And we're not subscribing to that anymore. There's no should, there's no timeline.
As you say that too, is what a privilege it is to be able to ask ourselves these
Oh,
questions.
yes.
And, just being in a kind of developed Western world and being
Hmm.
in the generation that we're in, I don't even know that like my mom was able to ask herself these questions. And so
Yeah.
it's a privilege and also it's a little bit of uncharted territory because we don't have a
Hmm.
blueprint. I think something that we talked about a lot was how do you stay grounded when the ground is moving? Like when things start to fall away, your identity, your ego, your career, your family, like whatever transition you're going through in your life,
Hmm.
how do you stay grounded? What do you stay grounded in? I don't think we have a lot of examples and blueprints of that from other people.
My family had really strong roots in the cultural community and religion, but that was something that I personally chose to leave behind when I was quite young. It is a big question because you could have a blueprint, but that blueprint might not match what your soul aligns to.
I think it
Hmm.
is also important to acknowledge just this whole idea of comparative pain
Hmm. Oh,
and
yes.
how it's so easy for us in privileged positions to minimize what we feel, minimize our experience because we're
Hmm.
comparing it to other people that have it so much worse in other
Hmm.
places and in other spaces in their lives. And that's not helpful either, right?
Yeah.
All of our experiences are valid and important and need to be acknowledged no matter how much privilege we have.
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure I point that out as well.
We're here to witness it and then also see ourselves and other people's pain so we can understand it and relate to it from different perspectives. And this is not a one person isolated conversation. There are so many people out there who need to see themselves through the mirror of other people's experience and their pain so they can feel heard, they can feel seen.
Absolutely. And can we also flip the script a little bit here and say the same about
Yeah.
joy?
Joy. Yes. We should
Because
do
I think
that.
I see people hold back and edit and mute their joy and their
Mhm.
privilege so much
Mhm.
because they're afraid of judgment from other people or they don't want to look like they're rubbing it in someone's face or something like that.
Mhm.
And that just breaks my heart because isn't joy the whole point? Like I think what the world needs is more joy and more examples of people living their joy, not in like a flashy, like influencer type of way, but in a
Mhm.
way that just like allows people to see them like fully in their wholeness. Like that is part of the spectrum of being human.
I feel like I grappled with this a bit. If you are used to feeling like you have to be like you're in pain or like you're having to protect yourself, you also protect yourself, not just from pain, but potentially from joy.
I love this. There is a lot of research on these sorts of things. And yeah, so what happens is when we so if we look at emotions as a spectrum
Mhm.
and we see pain as being at this end of the spectrum and joy as being at this end of the spectrum, what happens is if we deny pain and we say, okay,
Yeah.
I'm not willing to feel that, we shrink the spectrum
Yes.
because what we end up doing is almost like neutralizing ourselves and we end up kind of
Mhm.
staying in the middle. Our capacity to feel exists for both sides of the spectrum. So your capacity to feel pain correlates to your capacity to feel joy because
Yes.
it's about what
Exactly.
your body, your subconscious, what your experience can actually
Mhm.
hold. So if we mute this, we're also muting that.
Mhm.
In sort of a twisted way, your subconscious doesn't feel safe with joy because it hasn't experienced it enough to normalize it for you. And so that becomes something that's dangerous.
Right.
Or if you've had the experience of like, people will say, I can't feel joyful because every time I do, something happens. And that's, when the other
You
shoe
can't
drops. I'm
trust
always
it.
waiting for the other shoe to drop. Right. Again, that kind of makes joy less safe and makes us
Mhm.
want to shut out of it.
Sometimes it's because it's too much for us to hold all of that at once. So we can only hold one part of it, and it's going to be the part that's the easiest to access or that's most familiar to us.
Yeah, the familiar piece. That's it.
Yeah. We have to pull back the veil on a lot of things in order to be able to feel that the full expression of those things, and then be able to be on the full spectrum of emotion. But how do we tiptoe into it?
We have to titrate it because from a nervous system perspective, too much of anything that's unfamiliar or unsafe is just going to cause more harm.
Mhm.
So I think you saying tiptoe is exactly right. I think we also have to be A, very intentional about it, and B, very intentional about marking it as safe. I've given this assignment to people a lot where I have them create what I call a joy list. And on your joy list, anything that brings a smile to your face in any capacity, small or big. So maybe it's playing with a pet or watching a sunset or taking that first sip of coffee in the morning or, going to the beach or whatever it is, right? Put all the things on your joy list. Allow yourself when you do that thing to be in that experience. Don't just like light your
Mhm.
candle while you're drinking your water, while you're typing this thing over here, while you're doing whatever, but like be in that moment of lighting your candle. And as you do, having some sort of mantra where you're holding on to that feeling and you're
Yeah.
saying, it's safe for me to feel this. It's safe
Mhm.
for me to feel this. And just noticing in your body where the resistance is arising.
Yeah.
And I like to just kind of like place a hand over that, be like, okay, I hear you. I feel the discomfort and this is safe right now. And just like kind of stretch the edges of how long can you hold that feeling. Like when
I
I'm
love
laughing with
that.
my cats doing something cute or whatever, like seeing how long I can stretch that out. How long can I milk that moment? And when I feel the resistance coming up or the discomfort coming up because, oh, okay, this is lasting too long, it's just like, no, okay, it's safe for me to be
Yeah.
happy. That's what I
Micro
would say.
moments. Yeah.
Tiptoe. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. You're creating the environment where you can feel even a micro moment of peace, of calm. No one else is creating that for you. They don't have to live in the big dramatic moments. They can live in the natural pauses of life.
Can we also point out just like the complexity and the nuance around having multiple emotions at the same time, right?
Mhm.
Like you
Yes.
can be going through a hard season in life and still feel joy. And I think that
Permission to
this
feel
is
joy.
something
Yeah.
that, yeah, that people cut out or they don't realize that they think that joy is like this overarching emotion like, oh, I can't feel joy as long as I'm unemployed, or I can't feel joy as grieving the loss of this family member.
Yeah.
But you can. Like
Yes.
we just often we have to practice holding multiple things at one time. And sometimes joy is the medicine for the harder emotions. And so we have to give ourselves permission to feel that so that we can create more space so that those harder
Yes.
emotions don't completely envelop us.
That takes me back. I was probably 25 and I went through massive burnout, and
Mhm.
I had to step away from everything. And it was like up in grief and physical pain, relationship, work, all of it. And I remember someone saying to me, I had taken a leave, and they were like, well, you can't be that bad because you went to a cottage last weekend and seemed like you had fun. And all I could think to myself was like, so I'm depressed, anxious, and burnt out, and I'm just supposed to go sit alone in my home instead of allowing my girlfriends to pu pull me out of my own head for a weekend. I should say no to that. And I remember that stuck with me because people are gonna use my life against me. I don't want any part of that. And so I think what you're saying is so true. Like have to be able to feel multiple things, and you don't have to explain why you feel joy during a period of grief or why you feel sad when something wonderful happens, if that's
Yeah,
just how you feel.
it's so true. And you don't have to earn it either.
Yes. Yes.
That's the other thing that I think gets in the way is like, oh, but I haven't been keeping up in work. I haven't met these work goals. I haven't, done all of this stuff. And so I don't deserve to be hanging out on the beach reading a book at
Mhm.
4 p.m. on a Thursday, right? Like I
Right.
haven't earned that
I haven't
piece
earned
of,
it.
yeah. And it's not something that we have to earn.
Yeah. No. Rest is they are part of our hierarchy of needs. We don't have to earn biological needs.
Right?
That's
The
to put it
conditioning is
really simply.
crazy. But
Yeah.
and I think that analogy is so appropriate for other
Mhm.
areas of our life where we're constantly grinding, grinding, grinding. Even I think in the personal growth, healing, coaching space, I see this all the time is we think we have to constantly be working on something
Mhm.
and that working on ourselves means that we are uncomfortable and sad and like, going through it. And I think I subscribed to that for a while. And then I just started being like, ugh, I don't want to grow anymore. I don't want to heal anymore. I'm so sick of this. And that was when I started, kind of going through a little bit of a spiritual initiation around joy, beauty,
Mm.
pleasure being my teachers.
Yes. Oh, I
I'm
love
like, what if
that.
that is my growth? What if my growth is allowing myself to experience abundant amounts of joy and pleasure, like
Mhm.
beyond what I'm comfortable with? Like, what if that's the edge?
We grew up with a different understanding of happiness.
So much like, I mean, we can go really deep into this, but I think just in
Mm.
terms of the systems of oppression that we live under as well,
Mhm.
and speaking specifically to like patriarchy, capitalism, all of these
Yeah.
sorts of things, they want us to feel like we shouldn't
Mhm.
access joy and we shouldn't be spending money,
Yep.
keeps us in a particular lane that makes it easier to control us.
We're more vulnerable that way.
Mhm.
Yeah. You know what brings me joy? My micro moments. There's always like a song or an artist. You always have the best playlists. What song or artist is bringing you joy right now in your life?
Okay, this is probably going to be controversial. I
Ooh.
am obsessed with Cardi B's new album, Am I the Drama?
Okay. Okay.
I love it so much. And this kind of goes to again like the judgment
Yeah.
and I think especially like people that are spiritual and healers and this and that like what we're supposed to like and what we're supposed to be
Oh.
into and you know what? I love Cardi. I love the way she's unapologetically herself. I love the way that she doesn't filter herself. I just feel so empowered by the very authentic way that she lives her life. And yeah, I just think that there's so much to learn in that, and her album is great, so I I do love music, and I love a wide range of music, and I love curating music. I think this is my Pisces moon.
Mm.
I'm, like, always catching a vibe and, like, always curating playlists
Mhm.
around how I feel and, like, what
Yeah.
speaks to the season of life that I'm in or there are vibrations that
Yeah.
happen in terms of the frequency of the music and how that affects your body, and it
Mhm.
also can bring things to the surface.
Yeah. Something that came up when we were talking about pain and joy. It reminded me about the courage that it takes to say yes to yourself in those moments because I do think that we can get trapped in that no. And when you don't feel like you belong in your body, it's hard to feel like you belong in places outside your body. So it's brave to then say, yes, I'm going to step outside of this and do that thing that could maybe bring me joy and be vulnerable to receiving whatever that could come my way as a result of that.
Yes, I love that you mentioned that because there's just an image that's coming in my head of
Mm.
what we typically think of as surrender
Mm-hmm.
is like child's pose, right? Like
Mm.
everything to the earth, head on the earth, heart to the earth, everything closed, everything sort of bowing down. Like I think that's sort of what we think surrender is supposed to look like.
Mm-hmm.
But in my experience, I found that true surrender is more like a camel pose or
Mm.
a
With
wheel
everything open.
pose where you're the
Mm-hmm.
most open that you've ever been.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just that moment of surrender where you're like, I don't know what the edges are. I don't know what the path is. I don't know what's coming next, what experience is meant for me, but I'm willing.
Mm-hmm.
If we can stay open and stay willing, I think that is really what surrender is. And that is where we find the juicy stuff
Yes.
and the good stuff because so often it exists beyond the edges of what we could have envisioned
Mm-hmm.
possible for us. And so you're right. It's freaking brave because it kind of goes back to what we were saying before about your survival mechanism. Because everything inside of you wants to just abort, close down, put up the
Yeah.
wall, like go into your little cave because it's scary, because it's different, and we have no idea what's coming next. So it's
Mm-hmm.
insanely brave. It's insanely vulnerable. And I think you have to have a really strong spine
Mm.
to be able to do that. And when I
Mm-hmm.
say spine, I think like self-concept, um, support system, rituals, all those things. So if we're in a situation where we feel like we need to surrender and we're afraid and maybe we're experiencing pain, there's a few things that I would say kind of form your spine that can help you when everything else is falling away to feel like you're rooted in something.
Mm-hmm.
So I think your values is one of them. What do I stand for? What do I believe
Yeah.
in? And not just that, but like your personal values. Like, what's a North Star for me in terms of how I want to live my life and show up in this world? What's the
Mm-hmm.
legacy? I think having some sort of like spiritual practice that connects you to something bigger than you, even if it's just nature, is important because it helps maintain a sense of hope. And then I think what I call the 4 pillars of connection are really important parts of your spine as well. And so connection to your physical body, connection to your soul self, connection to community, and connection to nature.
Mm-hmm.
I think those, I call them the table legs. Those table legs of connection can stabilize you when everything feels swirly and
Mm-hmm.
difficult. Even if, like, for example, like you were saying, your body's giving you all this stuff that you're not used to, just like maintaining the connection and the conversation with your body is so
Mm-hmm.
important.
Yeah. And if you don't have any of those things, be brave anyway. Stand in the rain,
Be willing to
go to a
feel things.
yoga class alone, figure out what your values are. I had to do this. I had to strip it all down and rebuild it all up again. And I didn't have a value system that I could consciously draw upon. I was removed from a portion of my community. I moved into a place for the first time by myself. And I had to learn who I was going to be. I had to peel myself up off of my floor, put on my rain boots, and walk in the pouring rain to the yoga studio, sign up, and lay in the hot room and start moving my body again because I hadn't in a while.
Well,
And
you're
so be
illustrating it,
brave.
right? Like, this
Yeah.
is if somebody is going through this and they feel like they don't have any of those pillars or table legs or anything,
Hmm.
then that's where you start.
That you just have to start.
Start to
You just be
define what your
brave.
values are, start to create a sense of, I call it your spiritual credo. Okay, maybe
Yes.
you come
Love
from
that.
a religious background or something that you're not subscribing to anymore. So what do you subscribe to?
Yeah.
What do you believe? Just write it down. Just figure it out. And like I said, even if it's just nature, that's okay. Allow it to
Yeah.
be that. So
Yeah.
I think that's the starting point that I would say for people that feel like everything is changing and they don't know who they are and they don't know where they're
Hmm.
going and they're feeling a little bit lost. It's like, okay, well, let's start here. Like,
There. Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I have moved to a new place where I didn't know anyone.
Hmm.
I think I've done it
Yeah.
like 4 times now. It's a
New
lot.
York, New York, LA,
Miami,
Miami.
Santo Domingo.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that one.
Actually,
That's
when I
new.
moved to New York, I knew some people. But when I left home to go to college, I didn't know anyone
Okay.
where I was
Yeah.
going. So I would probably count that over New York. Yeah. It's
Amazing.
scary, but you
Yeah.
figure it out. You
You do.
find your people, you build your community. You just have to, like you said, put on your rain boots and do the thing.
Do the damn thing.
And that gets
Yeah.
easier when you have the other things. When you have something about who you are that you feel confident in, even if it's just, these are my values, this is what I stand for.
Yeah.
Something super simple.
The reason I shared that story is because it's like one of those pivotal moments where I was so small, but it literally picked me up every single day afterwards. And I stopped worrying about trying to figure it out. And I was like, let me just go do that thing. And let me go do it again. And then the story for me was like, oh my God, I did that thing at the hardest moment. I did it. And I started to trust myself that I could do it again. And that if something got me back into that place, because regression is a path as well, I would figure out how to do it again, even if it took some time. And the trust in me being able to keep doing that, regardless of whether I'm taking one step forward and a few steps back. It was a cumulative thing. Yeah. But yeah,
That is
it's a
trust.
very,
Trust is built,
yeah.
not found.
Yes, exactly. Building blocks of trust.
Like you said, the more you do it, the more you believe that you can do it again.
Yeah.
And it's not going to look great every time. Well, I've definitely made attempts at building community with people who were not interested in being my friend.
Same. Yeah. Same.
And that doesn't feel good. That's up,
No.
right? Like you said, sometimes it feels like you're taking a step back, but you have to keep putting yourself out there and keep trying, because there are going to be people who do want to be your friend, right?
Yeah.
So
Sometimes
it is.
community finds you. And that's the part about, like, when you say the camel, like, pose, like opening yourself up, it's like you're also allowing people in. You don't always have to be the one to push through. You can just be clear and find yourself in a spot, and then someone will find you, or something will find you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that too.
The reciprocity with the universe, reciprocity with something higher.
It's like you take one step and then the universe meets you where you're at.
Where you are.
So I think that's sort of reflected in that idea that you're saying, where it's like when you open yourself up, the thing can more easily find you because you've actually taken an action here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's putting that energy out in the world, and it's creating space for it, because, you know, maybe there was somebody who'd been trying to be your friend for a while, but your walls were up and you were busy and you were guarded and you were whatever. And now all of a sudden you can actually see them because you've made that choice for yourself.
Your vibration, the way that you radiate energy, I think is very important to spaces and to humans and how we connect.
There's, this is another podcast for sure, but I love talking about this because, again, there's so much science behind energy and vibration. And I think people want to put that in a box, and they think of it, you know, as like, okay, well, right now I'm trying to manifest a new friend. And so they'll think it's just about that. But my God, the biggest mistake I see people make in business is like not matching the vibration of their business with their work and their marketing, right?
Yeah.
The biggest mistake I see people make in dating, same, like they don't match the frequency, the vibration of how they want to be in relationship with someone. And so it is such an interesting concept, because I think a lot of people will call it fake it until you make it. But it's not faking it.
Yeah.
That, I think, is like pretending. I think that connotes pretending. What I'm talking about is actually like thinking about, okay, how does my ideal romantic relationship feel? How do I feel like when I'm in that, even if I've never felt it before? How do I imagine it would feel? I'm visualizing that to the extent that I can actually experience it in my body. And moving from that place.
I mean, that question of how do I want to feel is so potent, because if you say, I want to feel like this, and then you don't every single day, that is your deepest intuitive self calling to you and saying,
That's
this is not the frequency.
Too. All these like manifestation gurus out here, all it is like inviting in the feeling of what you want and practicing that.
And the fake it till you make it thing, for me, I've always seen as like a bit of a, it's always felt like a defense strategy. Like if you're not really putting yourself out there, you're not really like throwing yourself in fully and being like, I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to be receptive to the fact that it might get messy. I might not do this perfect. You can't be humble if you're faking it.
Yeah. But also, if you need to fake it, if that's the thing that gets you to put on your rain boots and walk out the house, then
that's true.
I'd rather you fake it. You know,
I cried the whole way there, so I wasn't faking anything. I think I walked into that yoga studio and I was like, I'd like one pass, please.
Been there.
Okay. Yeah. And I think that's why I say be brave anyway. You don't have to say I am okay, but you can say I'm just going to do the thing anyway. And that's not faking it. That's actually really authentically leaning in and saying, I know that I feel this way. I acknowledge that I feel this way, and I'm going to do something anyway to try and see the light. or even a little tiny, tiny glimpse of it.
But can we also acknowledge that like bravery, I think we associate bravery with this feeling of being invincible and powerful. And like we have the lion
Yeah.
image and stuff. And bravery does not feel like that. Bravery is like super vulnerable and scratchy and
Yes.
scary. And I think
Itchy.
it's
Yeah.
so
Like,
interesting. Like, how did we get the lion and bravery
oh,
connected?
there must have been, isn't it the Wizard of Oz that did that?
Yeah, the heart.
Like the lion and courage.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe that was
Yeah.
it. I don't know. But yeah, you definitely don't feel like a lion when you're being brave.
No, not always. Sometimes, but not always.
It's so interesting.
I know we could keep going about radiating energy and vibration. We could go super deep into that, but if we go that way, we'll never come out of it. So,
No, don't get me started. I'm a Gemini, so I call myself an expert generalist. So I could yap about like pretty much anything under the sun on a very general level for a pretty long time.
I love it. Well, we can wrap it here and then figure out what we want to yap about on the next one.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yay.
We always get juicy. We know it'll be good.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. I love chatting with you because I feel like you always just bring an extra complexity and relatability. And I think because you're a Capricorn too, your brain works differently from mine. And I think it provides like a really great counterbalance. That's why we have such good conversation.
Yes. So we always see two sides of the equation and then figure out a way to have them meet in the middle.
Yeah, because I'm all up here in the air and you're here on Earth. And so you're like, you're pulling me down.
But sometimes I need that hot air balloon to like drift me up and see the full picture. And you help me do that too.
Exactly.
So I like
We
that.
need that polarity for sure.
Exactly. I love it. Well, thanks for listening. I'll be back next Sunday. So follow wherever you listen to podcasts. And remember, real power isn't loud, it's lived.